So you essentially wanted them to do in the movie that moment where the person's like, I can't believe this, but it's time for us to fight. The Tomorrow War.
Tomorrow War.
like, that's when you turn the movie off. Like, I'm good. Like,
Well, they...
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Super Agile Bros. What's happening? You already know what it is. My name is Bradston, and I'm here with Kyle. Say what's up, Kyle.
Hey, what's going on?
And the boy, Steve. What's happening, Steve?
Present.
He is present. Yes, we are in class. I guess I'm the teacher. Yeah.
So we're not learning anything.
You're being paid too much.
Too much.
Ooh.
So, no, today's episode I'm excited about because I gave the guys some homework and they did it. Oh, I guess I am the teacher now. Now that I said that I gave the guys homework. But long story short, I gave them homework to watch the movie Tomorrow War, right? So today we're going to start out our conversation talking about Tomorrow War. It's the if you're not familiar with what Tomorrow War is, it's kind of the summer blockbuster movie being hosted on Amazon Prime, right? Yeah, on Amazon Prime. Everybody's been talking about it. It's a very interesting movie. What I would say to anybody who's watching, I guess listening would be more appropriate, listening to this podcast today, if you do not want to get the movie spoiled, Tomorrow War, I would encourage you to stop listening now, because we're going to go into the movie. We're going to talk about everything, opinions, storyline, whatever it is. So this
smells, taste,
everything. So
quickly go watch the movie now and then come back.
yes. Pause it. This is not a commercial for the movie, but pause it, watch it, then come back and hear our conversation, because I promise you, if you watch it, you'll have a lot of thoughts, and you'll probably be like, I wonder what their thoughts are. So, anywho, spoiler alert. I've given you more spoiler alerts than I feel like half of media gives me. So, okay, cool. So, now that spoiler alert is done, all right, fellas, I gotta hear your opinions about the Tomorrow War. And I got a lot of random questions that are floating around my head. But first, I guess I'll start with just giving my general feeling about the movie, and I'd like to hear you guys' general feeling, and then, we'll just talk about the movie. So, I saw the Tomorrow War with my wife, Shailene, and we were literally just looking for a random movie. I'm a big sci-fi fan. If you've watched listened to one of our last podcasts, you probably heard me and Shoop making fun of, what was the movie again?
Europa Report.
I try to scrub it from my mind anytime I have an opportunity, because that movie is so trash. But I'm a big sci-fi person, so anytime I see a movie and the movie's about time travel and stuff like that, I'm always down. So, I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie, but I also kind of was frustrated with it 50% of the time, because 50% of it didn't make any sense to me, but I kind of started to get it toward the end, but I was kind of why are you going into the future to fight a war?
Right.
But overall, I liked the movie. Overall, I enjoyed I said it, I think, to the guys before, it kind of felt like Independence Day to me, because it was just kind of a fun kind of movie. I mean, it felt like the stakes were pretty high, you know what I'm saying? But overall, it just kind of felt like a action movie. So I don't know, I liked it. If I were to rate it, I'd probably give it a 7 or 8 out of 10.
Ooh,
so yeah,
that's high.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty high. I really enjoyed it. I'd probably watch it again just because I have a lot of thoughts about it. But what about you guys? What was your initial take on the movie?
Steve?
You want to fight for it, Kyle? You want to go first?
You can go.
Very well. So I did not watch it with my wife, because I don't have one.
Okay.
I found this girl, and I dated her for a few years, and then I watched it with her.
Fair enough.
Against her will.
I went back in time to have this relationship just so I could watch this movie with her. No, I liked it. It was pretty good. I guess we won't get into specifics or can I? Should I get into specifics
Whatever
about things that stood out to me?
Man, if you got something
All right.
specific, go for it.
I mean, this is, I guess, kind of. Give your overview too.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Give your overview, and then Kyle can, and then we'll go straight to specifics. So yeah, go ahead.
Sweet. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought the story is great as long as you kind of squint and maybe don't look too closely. I liked the human element of it. It kind of reminded me of Interstellar, how you have this like grand sci-fi adventure, but it's really humanized by this guy just trying to get back to be with his family.
Yeah.
I would say was much less of that than Interstellar, but it still was in there. Like, I gotta get back to my daughter and, all this stuff. J.K. Simmons is a treat as usual. Chris Pratt did a great job. I saw some things I hadn't seen in other sci-fi movies.
Okay.
I will say that it mostly was like it mostly was just like, oh yeah, we're on a sci-fi romp, we're killing aliens and blah, blah, blah. But then sometimes it was like outright goofy and not in a bad way. It had some legit humor in there. I guess like kind of, for lack of a better term, slapstick. And I was like, all right, like this is really subtle and that makes it even funnier to me. But then you also have kind of some of the sci-fi tropes where it's like they go out of their way to do something or say something with a character, and it's like, why would you do or say this? Why wouldn't you just do this other obvious thing? But amen. It was good. We liked it. Keisha liked it.
That's what's most important.
That's, I would say, like third most important.
That is key.
Ooh,
that's cute. So, yeah, I'll rate that joke a 9 out of 10.
Thank you.
And I'll rate the movie. I won't rate the movie because I don't believe in rating movies.
No. You got to break your rule today. Just give us come on. You can do it.
Fine. I'll say out of 5 stars. I'll give it basically like a 4.
Okay.
Maybe a 4. Maybe a 5.
Okay.
No, I'll say a 4.
4 out of 5.
5, yeah, out of 5.
4. So like an 8 out of 10. Okay, cool.
So he rated it higher than you did.
Yeah, he did.
Snap.
So Kyle, what was your overall?
So I didn't think it was a bad movie. I went in with some expectations because first off, I avoided the movie because of my expectations. But based on the name alone, Tomorrowwar was not an enticing title to me.
Very stupid name. Yeah.
What, you didn't like Tomorrowland?
Yeah. See, every movie I've seen with the word tomorrow in it has been pretty bad. The first movie that came to my mind was Day After Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. And that movie was kind of rough.
Right.
It was all right.
Wait,
but it was like a run of the mill.
That's the climate change movie.
Ice
tornadoes.
Yes.
Not mech suits, but exoskeletons, I guess.
No.
What?
That's the Edge of Tomorrow.
See, look.
Yeah,
Tomorrow
is also. I've seen that one. That's
Which one was Day After Tomorrow then? No.
The climate change.
Climate change. Yeah, with the big wave. Okay, that movie was actually really good. So never mind.
Okay.
I was confused. I like that movie a lot.
I like that too. I was like, he really didn't like it. Day After Tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I was thinking it was gonna be like Edge of Tomorrow because that movie it was pretty like campy and tropey and had all the not superhero, but like the main guy can't die because of plot armor type movie, and you knew what was gonna happen from the very beginning. And I was like, I don't feel like spending because it was kind of a long movie too. This one, Tomorrowwar. Yeah. And so I was like, I don't want to spend like my whole afternoon watching this movie and then being mad afterwards. But Brad said he watched it first. He was the guinea pig and said it was okay. So yeah, I watched it also with my significant other, my wife, Mrs. Yams, and she enjoyed it. So for the most part, it definitely had its moments. Seeing Chris Pratt in like a leading action man type role was a little unique. I couldn't not see like serious Star-Lord, I guess you can call it. Like whenever he was actually doing what he needed to do, he was a pretty cool like military character. And that's all I saw every time, Chris Pratt was on the screen in this movie because he was holding a gun shooting aliens. I felt like the story wasn't necessarily unique, but they took some like unique chances with it, especially with as far as like the characters are concerned. They didn't go with the typical archetypes and then make sure that they were the main ones. They kind of mix it up a little bit, so that was good. So I guess overall my rating for the movie would probably be because of how it ended. I didn't like the ending, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure.
Interesting.
I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Interesting. 6.5. Okay, higher than a 5. So Steve, you're saying there's something you want to dive in, so we'll just get right into it. What were you thinking about?
So my first great impression, well, actually, let me be honest. My first impression is in the beginning of the movie when they fall out of the clouds and land in the pool, or some of them land in a pool, and I was like, no, you would still die.
100%. 100%.
I can only assume that, okay, the pool was on top of a skyscraper. Maybe the height difference wasn't that much, but it feels like it was that much. It feels like he would have died.
For sure.
So my immediate thought was, oh, they must be like superhumans. But then I'm like, oh, they're not even like military normal humans. They're legitimately just schmucks. Just random citizens who didn't die when they fell in the water.
So I want to stop there because that part was like, so like, and I know you as a physicist, you're probably like your head was exploding watching that moment happen. But like that whole moment, I was like you said, everybody did. Like, first of all, they all appeared like in the sky, not like a little bit above the building. They were in the sky, right?
They were in the clouds.
Then they showed the result of some people missing, right? Hitting edges of the building, stuff like that, and them just getting murdered, right? And though water is not the ground, you still gonna get jacked up. Like,
oh yeah,
90% of those people would have got knocked out hitting the water straight out. And then I don't know, and maybe I got to go back and watch it, but I'm 100% sure some of the people who survived hit the ground on top of the building.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
So I was like, that you can't like have it both ways. You can't show a dude hitting the edge of a building and being like absolutely obliterated, and then also like have a person just landing on the deck and being like, I'm good. My leg hurt a little bit. Like, yeah, that was.
Even if you land on top of somebody else and they break your fall.
Yeah. If you
you were high up there.
You super dead. You're super dead.
They're super dead.
It's okay. They landed in the bushes. Like
you'd be impaled.
Like the other guys.
You'd be impaled. Like every scenario was the Earth, the planet was done. Like it immediately failed. The movie should have ended right there. Like
also, you know, I didn't realize it till literally just now, but the whole point of them falling out of the sky was like, oh no, there's an anomaly. There's a problem with the jump link. They never explained that. I thought something had happened and they would come back to it, and I totally forgot.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. And this is the first time there's been any sort of error with it.
Right. Yeah, it seemed very random, but maybe it's because the research team where they were located and they'd already been killed, so maybe the uplink was jacked up because of that. But there's just so many problems, like even like how they communicate. Like anyway, so continue what you're saying, Steve. I have plenty to say, but continue.
So that was my first impression. I would say the first best positive impression I have was when they show the white spikes.
Okay.
I think monster design is always really interesting to me. It's always cool to see what movie artists come up with for these monsters. And I thought the white spikes,
it was good.
Not just for movies, but for most media, were pretty high up on my list of like, dangerous aliens. With I would say Star Trek aliens and Zelda Hylians down at the bottom as basically just humans.
Zelda
and then a certain shade of blue from Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy somewhere in the middle, and then white spikes somewhere at the top.
Okay.
That was cool. They were scary, they were dangerous, they were fast. So it immediately became clear that something about the white spike invasion was weird, because I'm like, these are animals. How are they smart enough to mount an invasion? Like, they don't seem that they seem somewhat intelligent, but they don't seem like they use technology or like have clothes,
Right.
Yeah, so
that was a cool little like foreshadowing of
So,
things later.
let's stop right there at the white spikes because I actually really, really agree with you, Steve, on the white spikes because I don't know how many movies I've watched where the reveal of the monster is so whack.
Yeah.
They're hiding what they look like. They're hiding. Maybe they just like you don't even get a good visage or whatever you want to call it of the enemy or the monster. And then the moment they show up, like we were talking about, what was it called? Signs. Like the signs reveal of the aliens. Like if you've seen it, you'll be like, okay, I guess that's a thing. But like this one, really, like when she said or he said, whoever said, like, yo, the reason we haven't shown anybody is because we honestly think if we showed people, like they wouldn't come and fight this war. And when she said that, I was like, meh, like, we'll see. But then I saw the white spikes and I was like, yeah, I wouldn't, I would never.
100%.
100% would have never. And kind of echoing your point about them, and we'll talk about the story and stuff like that. But yeah, like to me, it was always very interesting because, number one, in my mind, when I first saw them, I was like, that's interesting. Like that the aliens are like, not bipedal. Number one, like that's always what we do in movies. They're not blobs. They're not like, they're kind of animalistic and they seem almost like what is there like, not that evolution was on some other planet, but like they seem very, very designed.
Like what order of animal?
Exactly. Like they seem very designed to murder. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it seemed like almost like a mishmash of different animals and they just killed and killed and killed and they didn't seem to really have a purpose behind what they were doing. It just was like
no goals.
And like I was like, and immediately I said to Shailene, I was like, how did they get to this planet? Like I can't imagine these creatures flying a ship. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Exactly.
Them being there, their whole their whole thing was that I think that really made them a powerful antagonist or enemy. It was they were such a mystery, like, and it was on every account. Like you couldn't predict them. You couldn't try to, like Steve was saying, they didn't seem to have any sort of like unifying tropes that was human-esque that we could latch on to. Just every time you saw them, it was super primal. It's like, what is this thing gonna do? And I think one thing that really helped the reveal that a lot of these other movies fail at is they try to prolong the reveal and they build up all this tension, all this hype, and they have whatever it is, kill hundreds of, mercenaries and the strongest people on the planet. And you're running for hours and hours and then the reveal. And it's like, I don't think you could ever live up to what, the hundreds of people in the theater, each of their own interpretations are. And so like the sooner you show your idea for what is causing all this destruction, I think it's better for you as a narrator because you fill in that gap sooner and it doesn't necessarily have to be like mind-blowing at that point, but being cool enough, I think makes it feel even better. Yeah. Because the first time I saw the monster, I actually thought I recognized it from something else. Like it seemed very familiar. Like it was still very scary and very intimidating, but it wasn't like, oh, I've never seen that before type of thing. And I think that was like, it made it seem like really cool in my mind because it's like, it's almost like a callback, I guess, not to other aliens necessarily, but, it kind of grounded the experience for me in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I feel like they did a good job on the reveal. They didn't overly hype it. Like, they didn't even talk about the enemy, really, until they were, like, really ready to go, right? So, like, from the moment you heard, like, oh, they're super scary, to the moment you saw them was maybe, like, 15 or 20 minutes. And it was, like, just a short period of time where they were like, oh, I just see them moving in the distance, right?
Right.
And then they were just on them once they were in that, like, stairwell. And you were like, oh, my goodness. Like, how do you even fight this thing, And I feel like there was just so many elements about them. I mean, the first problem is that the projectiles. I think anytime you have a monster that can shoot projectiles, it's like the worst. Like if they're like, they have to get on you, then you have a chance to deal with them. But if they can kind of like, they can not only destroy you in one-on-one, like hand-to-hand combat, but they also have some accuracy. Like, dude, like worst type of monster,
And the animation for the stance and the way that they kind of pointed and flung their tentacles when they were shooting those projectiles everything just clicked. It was really nice. So good.
Yeah.
whoever worked on that monster design, deserves
Something.
all the
A
accolades
big
because
thumbs up.
Yeah. Definitely.
it was so good.
Definitely one.
And I remember when the first time it shot somebody in the stairwell, and Keisha was like, "Oh my gosh, they shoot too," and I was like, "Oh, but if you'd been paying attention, you would have seen all the spikes embedded in the wall
Mm-hmm.
earlier." So I thought that was cool too, that they kind of showed like, "Oh, these guys." But that for me drew attention to the fact that not only did the military not, show any pictures because they're too scary, they'll scare you away, but I mean, even at the last second, they gave no advice regarding
Exactly.
can these things fly? Can they shoot? What color are they? Can they turn invisible? Like, we need some information.
So let's
that drove me crazy.
Yeah, so let's let's go back a little bit, because I think that's something that me and Shailene were like, so like the whole movie. Like, first of all, I have some issues with the Tomorrow War concept in general, but like the fact, like you said, like think about how the whole sequence of events that started with what's his name? What's the actor's name?
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt, right? He gets drafted and they immediately put him in the little arm thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like,
Right.
why are like, okay, cool, you're about to do this. Maybe you know that people are going to flee, but you already got him sitting in the chair. Like, he's not getting away from this at this point. You got him locked in. Like, you can start like explaining like, hey, this is a part of the process. Boom, boom, boom. Like, okay, like it just felt like from the very beginning there was an unnecessary amount of just lack of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the people that they're going to send to the future to fight super monster creatures. Like, even if you don't tell them what they look like you said, Steve, like, can you give me some idea of how I should fight them? Like, not just hold the gun and point and shoot. Like, like give me some feedback, and I don't know, that really bothered me. Like, I don't, continuing shoot, like, how did you feel about that? Like, is there any point does it even make sense? Like, can you see a scenario where it makes sense not to communicate basic information?
So in that scenario, when they were clamping his arm, I kind of get it, because the armband, once it's on, makes deserting way harder, and so somebody who had a mind to desert might try to run away in that moment. I don't know, or like do something to jeopardize the armband before it's attached. But like, yeah, I agree. It seemed like, okay, this is just for the sake of the movie's tension, and it's almost too contrived.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was manufactured tension for sure.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how I feel. So they were sending in civilians, right? And they were sending in civilians with essentially no training and maybe a few days notice. Like, you're about to be in the future in a few days. You don't know how to use guns. We're not giving you enough equipment, like.
I'm sorry, you immediately made me think about the scene where old dude was like, why they send us here in normal clothes? That man's still wearing a chef hat.
Exactly, yeah. So,
why?
And they also never really explained why they sent that man in a chef hat.
No.
Dude,
do they not have enough material?
Or at least have him take the chef hat off.
That's what I'm saying.
Why? It's not
you had to
doing
put
anything.
the thing on his arm. Like, it didn't even fall off when he was getting the surgery. Like,
yeah. So that was silly, right? I felt like they explained it, right? They were like, well, most people in the military can't go to the future, therefore we have to we have to draft from like the normal population. And they said that like time was really of the essence,
Mm-hmm.
because of the way the jump leagues work. Like, you're going exactly 30 years in the future. They can't just take years to train you and then send you 28 years in the future. So it kind of makes sense, but I mean, you don't need years. But basic boot camp would have been really helpful, I think. Just,
if nothing else, yeah, it's helpful.
just, because you're really sending these people to die. Like, no wonder the attrition rate was so high. These are people who have never shot guns, people who've probably, I mean, at some of the age, a lot of those people probably even never even played video games with.
and then there's a whole other problematic situation where they have a limited amount of people that they can send, because they can't send people who are alive or somebody's parents at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was like Remember, like they were like you had to have died
Yeah.
prior. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know there was only like what 500,000 people left on the planet. So I guess there's billions of options. But like, it still seems like a bad idea to just keep throwing people randomly and they all just die, and then you run out of a population that you can use. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
There didn't seem to be any sort of rhyme or reason. It's just like they were in panic mode, but not getting any better at like strategizing, which is like the whole point of a war, I guess. If it's prolonged, eventually you want to try something else or do something more effective.
So,
And they kept sending that one guy who kept doing
the black
tours, like he kept coming back, but he wasn't training anyone. It was like this. Obviously, he knows how to survive. Why is he just going back?
He knows what they look like.
yeah, yes, he knew he could have been
knows-
some benefit. Yeah.
Yeah, but they just keep sending him back in the fray, which I think is very cruel, by the way.
Yes.
Well, he chose it, right? He chose to do it. Like that was his.
Did he?
Yeah, yeah.
He
That
did.
was the whole conceit. Like he knew he was dying from like bone cancer,
From cancer.
some kind of cancer. So he was like, "I'd rather die by my own terms, you know, on my own terms."
Well, I know he said that, but did they ever imply that he was like asking them to keep coming back?
I think he was volunteering. Yeah, I think he was 100%.
Okay.
volunteering.
And then that one guy,
I
he
must have
got
missed that.
redeployed, and he didn't want to go. The
What
other
one guy?
the other comic relief character, I don't know his name, but it was like the
Oh,
well,
Yeah. No,
he
no,
got
no.
redeployed.
He
He was
wasn't-
already in the mission, so it was like he.
yeah, it was still during the 7-day mission.
yeah.
He wasn't actually redeployed.
Oh, okay. I didn't know those were necessarily different. All
Okay,
right.
okay. So let me throw a theory at you on why. Well, first of all, I think everything about the whole military situation was stupid. But what if the reason that the military was so haphazard was because most of the people running the military were like younger and didn't have the experience to kind of know how to appropriately do it, right? Like they were all like maybe 30s and 40s, which is, you know, maybe 20s, 30, I don't know how, like 30s, I guess. You know, so they
You
were
mean
younger.
the military?
Hmm?
You mean the military in the future,
In
or
the
the
future.
military that got sent back
Yeah,
to the
the
past?
In the future, like, and they all had to be kids because of, you know, the time jump and all this stuff. But like, you have to think to yourself, even if you gave them that, right? There's a military that exists today, right? All over the planet, all these militaries were working together. These boys couldn't donate like flak jackets. Like they couldn't have went into military overdrive, like a state of emergency. Like let's make a whole bunch of clothes for all type of people. You know, like take the man's chef hat off and give him a helmet. Like,
Oh yeah,
you know, like
yeah.
it just seemed
Yeah.
like they were, you know.
Yeah, things were unnecessarily being like overlooked
Mm-hmm.
to their detriment.
And then there's so much vagueness on like what's happening and why are we doing this, what's going on, and I get like you got to do that, you just got to get people going, and clearly they understood their. So now okay, I just want to ask y'all about what do you guys think about this whole time fighting a war in the future? Like, how does this make any sense in the first place?
Okay.
Okay.
So as soon as this lady came out of the portal in the soccer game and she was like, "We need you to come to the future and fight with us," and then they talk about the draft. As soon as that happened, I turned to Keisha and I was like, "This makes no sense," because I mean, it's the concept of borrowing from the past, right? Like you're undercutting yourself if you do that. But then they made me feel better by talking about how they're only sending people who have died
Yeah.
in the intervening 30 years. I'm like, okay, so they're not, I mean, kind of, because you're still, in theory, you're still changing the future if you sense, you know, so if I'm going to invent a new super weapon, for example, just as an example, 15 years from now, and then I die, like I would have been available for this war and they would have drafted me. But if they draft me and I die, that I don't invent my super weapon. It doesn't matter that I'm already dead by the time the war breaks out. Now I've died 15 years early. And it didn't really seem like they cared about that in the military or in like the plot.
Okay.
Yeah, they definitely handled like they kind of rode the fence on time travel theories in movies because they didn't stick to the one that says, "Oh, I go to the past to change the future" necessarily, and they also didn't stick to the one that says, "I go to the past to change a different future, like in a different timeline. But I can't change my future." But they had like elements from both because his daughter died like in that future. sorry to jump to the end and like spoil it, but like they lost the war, you know, and so it didn't change, I guess, them winning the war in the past, and so it's like now that future doesn't exist. But at the same time, if that future doesn't exist, then he could never go into the other. Like it's just, I guess, it's just like the confusing part between like, are the timelines the same?
See, fundamentally, like time travel doesn't make any sense because even if, okay, say they did this, they had the perfect algorithm that chose people who wouldn't have a major impact on the future because they died sometime prior to some event, right? The problem is we have a whole nother issue, which is how does, Chris Pratt's character dying in the war in the future affect his daughter in the past, who would be the leader in the future, but the reason she's the leader is because their dad ran away and then she just, got more resilient. And like it breaks right there. Like eventually, like it doesn't make any sense. I think fundamentally in any timeline movie where you're moving more than one piece on a board, it has to be a different timeline. Like, time loop movie or whatever. Like, it has to be another timeline because how does it make sense that you change something in the past? Like, you did something successful in the future that can affect something in the past. Also not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just fundamentally
the future.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Chris Pratt dying in the future. Did that happen? Did I miss that?
No. I was saying that he died in the original timeline. Like, he left his family in the original timeline.
In the intervening 30 years. Yeah.
And then died in like a car accident or something. But, which basically made his daughter eventually become the general. But imagine if he died in this timeline in the war, like fighting the, the whatever they're called, the white spikes. And then he, how does that affect her? Maybe she doesn't become the general.
Yeah, if she would remember him dying from being drafted, she would probably hate the initiative.
It was what I'm making this up. It was what time travel buffs would call an unstable time loop, where she remembered things adult Miri remembered things about her father coming back home, divorcing her mom, eventually dying, and then when she's in the future telling him all this, and then he doesn't do that. Like, he doesn't go back home and leave his family. Like, it totally. And so me and Keisha were like, what changed? Like, what event caused the timeline to change from the way that she described it?
Yeah, it could have been any number of things.
Well, I definitely. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Not necessarily. I mean, you would expect that anything that happened is part of the timeline, but it's just inconsistent.
Well, I think, and they didn't do, because the movie was long and they had a lot to do, and I totally understand it. I think the reason originally, and this might not be what you're saying, Steve, but this is just something I noted, is that, how they said he left, right? He left his family. Well, they didn't get into this, but fundamentally, I think the reason he would leave his family in the non-altered timeline is because he didn't get that job, remember? And basically, he's disappointed and his life is all this, so he makes a bad decision. So I assume that since he accomplished something of merit in this timeline, he wouldn't leave his family, or maybe he still leaves his family.
Well,
that's
what I'm saying is, that's what I'm saying is the version that she remembers, the version of her father, would have also accomplished something of merit, right? Like, this would be a man who went to the future, helped fix the problem, and came back, and then left his family.
Yeah,
but instead, and even for him to hear her say this, like, maybe you could argue, like, oh, by knowing the future, he's able to change it. But him knowing the future should also always be part of the timeline. It's not self-consistent.
Yeah, that's why I think Zelda does it better. They just make multiple, like, because they're like, we're not going to play this game. Like, we know that like altering anything changes everything, so it's easier. So okay, now here's another problem. What about the people? Okay, the link breaks. Like I said, this whole movie podcast is spoiler, but the link,
the jump,
the jump breaks at the end. I have some issues with that whole sequence of events. Hopefully we can come back around to that. But it breaks, and some of the children from the future are now stuck in the past. How in the world does that not basically, like, what in the world happens now? Like, they, like, are there, where are their parents? Because their parents exist somewhere on the planet, right? And they couldn't know that their kids came back, right? Matter of fact,
unless they, I mean, I guess they could have kind of sent people whose, like, maybe their parents died when they were really young and they were in the military. Like, I don't know if they accounted for that on both ways. Like, they could only send people to the future who were already dead. Maybe they did something similar to sending people back.
They did. They couldn't send anybody back who had already been born.
They couldn't send anybody back. So that breaks everything. Because think about it this way. You are at home. Kyle, you and your wife are at home. Mm-hmm. The event happens on the soccer game. Your daughter shows up on TV, right? Mm-hmm. You don't know it's your daughter, but it's your daughter. And like, how does that not affect something? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, like when she's born, I guess, it is when the issue, because if she was part of that group, she'd still be around once she's born.
Yes. And they never explain why they care. Like, why does it matter if I go to the future and there's still a version of myself alive? Why does it matter if I come to the past and I get to see my baby self? They act like, I don't know, like you'd explode. They don't even act like anything. They just say, this is what we're trying to avoid, and they never say why.
I think that was more of like the time travel side of the fandom. Like,
exactly.
They were trying to appease them by having a reason.
I think it was very smart because they just knew that people already have that vernacular in their like sci-fi world. Like, you can't meet your past self or your future self. Mm-hmm. So they were like, we're not going to even try to explain that. They were like, y'all get it.
Exactly. But yeah, you're right, Brad. They are now stuck in the past, and eventually their past selves are going to be born, and they're going to have to deal with it.
They might have actually fixed that loop slightly. I don't know how many people from the past. Well, no, there had to be quite a few. So I was going to say, if only a few people were still alive from the future in the past, like they only sent like maybe like 5 people, right? 10 people. And
probably more than that,
right?
But yeah, not a lot.
And some of them went, some of them probably jumped back into the future during certain periods of the war, and so there was maybe like only like 1 or 2, like that black girl and like maybe one other person who was still from the future just monitoring things. If that was true, they might have actually done a really good job at the very end of the movie by killing them when they made that final assault on the alien ship, because they killed basically all the future people who were on that mission when they went to go.
Yes.
So maybe that was their cleanup. Like,
so that's what I don't remember.
That's a fair point.
I thought that the mission at the end had the woman Hart with the braids,
mm-hmm.
and it had the guy, I think his name was Darius, with the claw.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not from the future, he's from now.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't remember who else other than like, the main characters were on that ship. Like, I don't know. Not on the ship, on that mission. I don't know who was on the ship when it exploded. I thought it was just them 2, but Keisha was saying there was a bunch of people in there.
There was quite a few of the future people with them. Maybe 1 or 2. I can't remember. Okay. It was more than 1.
I don't remember other. Yeah, I only remember the other 2 that were with them that came was his dad and his other friend from deployment.
Yeah, it was the 2 black guys and his dad.
Yeah.
And then there was everybody else was future people.
Yeah, I only remember 1 other person, and it was the girl.
Yeah, I only remember Hart being there. I don't remember the bunch of other future people.
At least 2 future people.
I'll have to go watch it again.
I'd have to watch it again. I almost watched it again last night.
I'll believe you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch it again.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about... Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I have a theory that potentially after that like whole altercation where they go and they find the ship and they kill who they think is the queen that they fought in the future, I have a theory that maybe nothing changed. Because he survived, and his daughter survived, and that's kind of like the only ones that really matter to like progress the story to where it was. Like, I know some people came back and stuff, but none of that stuff really matters because they're going to be born later. But like, what if he blew up the ship, right? They thought it was over. But still, in like 20 years or whatever, everything melts, and there was like a second level or a second ship that had them on there. And so, like we were talking about earlier, he still leaves his family, even though he accomplished this thing. Something still happens to where he still leaves his family, right? He still dies. And his daughter, he didn't tell her anything about this. It seemed like he wasn't going to. Still doesn't know that he was deployed. He was just away for a little while. She knew Daddy was going to come back, she said. And so maybe the time.
Well, she knew he was deployed, yeah.
but maybe nothing changes. So maybe that's why she was able to. I don't know.
So that's very compelling. The only problem I see, I mean, they do both live, and that's most of the important stuff. But the other really important thing was that nobody in the future knew where these aliens had come from. They thought there was a ship, all this other stuff. But in this new timeline, even if there's like a second ship, humans are still aware that there was a ship that had been crashed for a long time and that we blew up at least one of them. So like, that's at least one major change.
That's a good point.
And also, I think because the military, the guy he took it as like, I sent them in to do it. But now I think
took all the credit.
Was he the president? Like, who was that guy?
He was just like the leader of the military.
Yeah.
Whoever in the U.S. First of all, like, there's a whole bunch of issues I have with this because like, we're supposed to assume that there's more than one military involved, right? And they're all sending people. So I'm assuming there's other links, or maybe there's only one link in the U.S. Like, they never made that clear. Like, was there multiple places that were sending people, or was it just because they said it was the whole world effort? But as far as we know, they were only sending Americans. But if
you know how alien movies, they say we're going to attack the world, and it's always the United States.
It's only the US.
Well, he said that in the movie, in the future, most of the world is gone. It's just the United States, I think.
But if you're sending people from like everywhere, then I mean there would be more forces. But I mean, okay, that's a whole nother. So okay,
that's true. We never see any foreigners.
So I mean, this is a movie, so there's a lot of like weird moments of them like bare hand fighting the queen and like doing stuff that doesn't make sense that should have probably killed them. But like, I just want to talk about the last sequence of them in like at the water fortress and when they're being assaulted. First of all, that was ridiculous. Like, I was like, there's literally no winning. Them fools swam from wherever with everybody. They said we bring in the whole family, and they murdered everything. But think about this. Chris Pratt's character's whole goal was to go back into the past with this information that in this disease or whatever that would kill the creatures, right?
Right.
This fool almost killed himself, like trying to save his daughter. And I get it; it's emotional and it's what it is. But like,
he jumped.
Like he didn't.
He was midair.
Yeah, like
no plan.
He threw himself. Like, what if it was 3 seconds later? Like
right. Like, and it only bit off his hand that was holding the vial.
And there's one white spike just dies, but it doesn't matter. The whole world ends.
Also, like me and Shailene were talking about how it was such a bad plan because the moment they had the virus, they should have given it to Chris Pratt immediately, but they kept it with his daughter until the very, very end, right?
Yeah.
What if she just got snatched up?
I thought that he did have it the whole time, and then she hands it to him. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like,
I think it was supposed to be dramatic, but it just made absolutely no sense.
It was definitely
because they kept splitting up too, like while they were trying to get there.
Exactly.
And she was like, "Run, you go to it." And like, if he would have got to the link or wherever they were trying to get to, she still had it.
She would have died, and it would have got thrown in the water, and it would have been over. Like,
so dumb.
And it's just like, and I mean, I guess technically they didn't really use the virus to kill everybody. They used a bomb. So technically they didn't even need the virus if you think about it. They just needed to blow everything up. But
the knowledge.
That was so I wanted to talk to you about the ending in general, because I actually thought this is one of the cooler moments in sci-fi. Like, I'm a big sci-fi fan. I can, talk about all kinds of sci-fi movies. Shout out to the Sunshine fans out there. That is to me, like, top of the list number one. But anyway,
Go. And there's no time travel, so it's a consistent movie you can understand.
Great sci-fi. But I thought it was really cool the way that they went with how the aliens got here, right? I love that it wasn't that it was the aliens who got here, but it was almost as if this was just completely accidental. Yeah. Right? Like, who knows first of all, like, I want to go back and almost look at what the aliens were who, like, seemed to be, like, operating the ship, because they were just upside down, right? Like, they were dead.
Kind of like the engineers from Alien.
Yeah, you know.
They
were
humanoids.
Yeah, they were like humanoids, but they seemed to be very big. Like, I didn't get a chance to look at them, but I thought it was, like, super cool that, like, oh, this means, like, there is some, like, spacefaring culture that precedes us by... what, like, has to be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah. That, like, that they kind of cool reveal. Slid that in there. And, I mean, not that they'd make a sequel, but, like, it'd be super cool if somehow that alien race kind of became a thing, you know?
Ooh, maybe they come to Earth looking for that lost ship.
Exactly.
Like, you blew it up. What do you mean?
or maybe.
Oh yeah, when they blew it up, it sent a distress signal, and that calls in the cavalry.
Yeah. Or yeah.
Although I don't know why crashing wouldn't send a distress signal.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, they might already. You know, for all we know, they're already on the planet. You know.
Ooh.
Yeah.
For all we know, that's our predecessors. You know, like, they came before us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like,
that seems a little extra, but
I don't know. I just think there's a lot of really cool things that you could do with that. You know, that, like, they're not just they're random, but they're not. You know, I just think that was really, really cool. I don't know, like, and that, like because if you think about it, like, they said, like, they came from Russia, right? And I don't know why they didn't, like, spend any time going, like, hey, let's, like, actually research where they may have come from, you know? Like, it seemed like nobody was trying to figure this out. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and, like, 5 people figured it out on their own. Like, how did they even figure out that it was there?
The little boy. The volcano boy, expert.
Yeah. That was my thing. I was like, why are they asking this kid? I get he's, like, the resident volcano expert, but he's a kid. He's not actually the expert. There's a real expert somewhere to call.
So that kind of leads into one big issue I had with this movie, which also contributes to the score I gave it, which was that the main character had some of the thickest plot armor. And one of the rivets in his thick plot armor was meeting every character that he would ever need to succeed. Oh, yeah. And even down to that little boy, which it was just, like, completely, like, they tried to make it at the end, I guess, seemed kind of random, but, like, within a 20-minute span, somebody would say, hey, we need somebody to do this, and it would zoom in on Chris Pratt's face. He would look into the air and say, oh, I know a guy, type of thing. And he did it 4 times over in the 20-minute span, and everybody knew their job perfectly. You know, he had his dad, who was a pilot, to get him over there at the end. He knew a military guy who he found at some random bar somewhere. He knew the little kid. The one funny guy he was talking to in the military base was also some sort of biological engineer or something.
Where did he work, Steve? Where did he work?
He worked at Georgia Tech.
The Georgia Institute of Technology, not MIT, because MIT is nothing. It's Georgia Tech. Come on, baby.
It's worthless.
We saved the planet.
When his daughter in the future said, he's like, oh, did you go to, I don't know, Yale, whatever he asked? And she goes, no, MIT. And the movie pauses, and I'm like, okay. Is that supposed to be?
You went to MIT. But y'all ain't say the word Georgia Tech did. But anyway, sorry, go back.
That's right.
You're saying, Kyle, the plot.
So, yeah, so that's pretty much it, though. But, yeah, like, he met and all the people he could have possibly met. He met everybody who directly contributed, like, to a T, to everything he needed to get at the end.
But I think that was actually, like, kind of the blockbuster movie part of it, like the Independence Day, you know, like everybody who you need to save the world is actually just right here the whole time, and the goofy kid, First of all, he was like, if you talk about volcanoes one more time, like, I just thought it was funny. Like, I thought he was throwaway. So I love how they brought it back. I mean, I think the bigger problem to me was that the military guy wouldn't even kind of sort of try to investigate this information. Like, even just pass it off. Like, hey, like, I mean, but I guess once again, this is the same military that was just sending people with nothing, like, what they woke up in to the future to fight the most.
What this man woke up in a chef.
He's like, I love my chef hat.
I guess in the face of the threat, though, I don't know. Like, it felt genuine, I guess, but at the same time, it's just like the stakes were higher. And the people who were telling you this were people who had been to the future, seen the thing, and would be the only people that have any sort of information that could lead to anything. And yeah, to not even like entertain the idea and wait for pushback from like someone else or something just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, it seemed very stupid. But, it's like, it's a movie. It's, you give it that. But, I think my biggest problem with the movie was the lack of attempt to prepare the past for the future in case they failed their mission in the future, right? Like, until the very end. Like, it seemed like, why not communicate this information? Like, hey, they came from Russia. Hey, we're trying to work on a cure. We don't know what it is, but hey, we have a part of the genome, so we're gonna send you regular updates of what might kill this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. Like there was no, like, we're going to send you some technology. So if we fail, we have an opportunity that we'll be more prepared in the future.
Yes.
Then they didn't even talk, like, okay. So here's my question. Did they figure out this time travel technique in the midst of fighting a war against creatures who were killing everybody? Like,
that's what it seems like. Or at least they got it to a point to where they were comfortable moving people.
They didn't talk about it at all.
Said they use it on rats at first or something?
Are you asking if they said that? I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember, yeah.
I mean, that kind of tech.
They invented time travel. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, they invented time travel in a 30-year span with a limited amount of population and like the mental, like the lack of resources. Like, they did some like crazy stuff. Like, and I mean, to be, first of all, I think doing time travel with one person would be difficult, but they were sending hundreds of people at a time,
right? Daily,
and they're just good. And I guess the anchor or wherever it was in this oil rig in the middle of the ocean, and they somehow moved it to the oil rig. Like, but the location, like, to me, I felt like the location that you would get transported to would be at the same location as, the time traveling mechanism, not like some really nice place that you like somewhere in the past. Like, it just seemed like
put you in the same spot, but in a different.
They could freely choose.
Like, which sounds like it'd be a more complex version of time travel.
Yeah, because they what did they teleport the guy to Miami Beach, or that was the plan at least, and then presumably if they're teleporting people from all over the past. But they're all coming to the U.S. in the future. Like, that's got to happen somehow.
And why not explain to them the technology for time travel now?
Like, where the schematics at?
Well, that's really dangerous. I fully agree with not giving the past time travel.
But you have no future. Like, what if you had to go, okay, cool, let's do, like, we're dead in the future, but we gave them the technology to go further in the past to maybe get ready even more. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe you don't want to go too far, but I'm like, I mean, there's a lot of issues, maybe it's because they're kids at the end of the day, but it's like, I don't know.
They're desperate.
And
yeah. I don't know.
I think it's hard because what were they trying the people writing this movie, what is always the play when you have a time travel device and your present is dire? You try to go to the past and maybe you try to change the past so that your future never happens. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's like the last minute thing. These guys were like, we want to write a movie where someone tries something different.
Yeah.
And so instead of changing the past, they're borrowing from the past. And you know what? It's kind of wonky, and it creates a lot of problems with storytelling and consistency. But I think it was a good effort overall.
And I'll say
they definitely tried something new.
Yeah. And I'll say that I'll say 80% of the movie, I kept saying to Charlene, but why are they sending people in the future to die? Like, I just kept saying that. But then eventually, when it came to the conclusion, and who knows why they're hiding this, that they were trying to buy time to find a way to kill them so they could send in the future, I was like, I get it. And if you can't make more time travel, you can't go at different times. It's just a one-way, a one buoy, what do you say? A boat to a boat or whatever. I was like, I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. Like, cool. Like, you need people in order to save the future, and the solution to save the future is only in the future, right? And they think to themselves, there's not enough time from wherever the past moment is for them to solve the issue. I get it. And like you said, I think kudos to them for trying to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So going back to the story. Oh, you can go ahead.
I'll say really briefly. I think one other little wrinkle that this introduces is like, normally when your characters are making the decisions of how to do things, the idea to go to the past and essentially abandon your present and just hope to help other people is not high up there, right? Like, you're basically saying, well, game over for us, but maybe we can help the human race survive in an alternate dimension. We didn't see any of that decision making. Everyone just kind of seemed on board with it. Yeah. And that's probably for the best, because that's boring. I think. I think those discussions are boring.
I guess.
Yeah, who knows what led to it exactly?
Yeah. Like, maybe it was still the last resort, and maybe that's why there's so few people left, as they're just now really getting this like phase of that type of plan implemented, because it took so long to get people to agree.
We don't know what level of culture is left. There's not a lot of people left. Is it just the military?
It seems like it. I think
like, she's the colonel. She was a colonel or commander or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. We never heard or saw anyone being higher ranked than her. It seemed kind of like she was just in charge of everything.
Yeah. There's a good chance that like the U.S. was kind of the last place that survived, and the people who were on that cruise ship that all got murdered were like maybe the last civilians, but most of the population was like military, because they could like escape and fight.
God, that cruise ship really came out of nowhere.
It did.
Am I crazy?
Charlene said to me that they said something about it, but I missed it. I didn't hear that.
Okay, I missed it too. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
But what were you saying earlier, 3Ms?
You said back to the story, Kyle.
Yeah, so I was thinking about, at the very beginning, they were doing like some world building and some initial character development. What do you guys think about, I guess, how they handled, Chris Pratt's character's backstory? And, they kind of, I guess, really went through all the things that he'd experienced to kind of, I guess, justify what things he does later. But how do you think that was handled? If you remember it, like he was a teacher of some sort. He had ex-military background, and then he was pursuing like this really prestigious. What was the job again?
Research. It was some research position.
So okay, I am okay with some of it, because I think like, oh, it was cool. Like, he had all the pieces of the elements that you need to be successful, right? He was intelligent. He had a military background. And he also had like the motivation, like my family, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it was a good like kind of character to create as the center point. I do think like some of the moments where they chose him as like, for example, they land in the past. Not everybody dies from falling from the sky, right?
The future.
Yeah, and who survives? Him and the black dude who's been there like 20 times,
right?
Who seems to be very like knowledgeable and
lucky.
But maybe he wasn't military. I don't know. Maybe he was just swole. But I was like, if this man is military, why not put him in charge? Mm-hmm. Put this guy.
They didn't put anybody in charge.
No, they put him in charge. They put Chris Pratt.
They radioed him.
They said, all right, you have the most military experience. You're now going to run point or whatever. You need to get these guys going to this point. Tell them what to do. Da da da. He said, okay, cool, I got it. Right. And he took charge. Right.
Well, Where did he get the radio? Did he have the radio
It was in his
already,
ear.
or did he pick it up?
Yeah.
I think everybody had a radio.
It did
Everyone
Avengers
had a radio.
thing
He was
where it's invisible.
He was just the first one to answer the radio when someone called on the radio.
Yeah, but they said, "Oh, you're this person. Oh, you have this background," and they immediately gave him the command, right?
Right. Yeah, but I think it's just because. Well, maybe you're right. I just took that to mean that he showed initiative. He answered the phone, so they were like, "All right, you're in charge."
Didn't black dude?
Yeah.
I think the black dude said something too. Like he was like,
He said when they started talking about research or the research team, the black dude was like, "All right, on me," or "I'll take point" or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then that didn't go anywhere because they stayed as one group and they followed Chris Pratt. So go figure.
Right. Yeah, the whole exchange was kind of canned. I guess like it seemed like it happened for us to see everyone else in the group see that he was ex-military.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it seems like that's something they should have done like before they went, was like maybe establish leaders before.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what it was meant. Before they left.
There was a whole breakdown of like, let's have some kind of structure. Like, who's the best person? Like, hey, you seem to have experience. You lead this platoon. You have experience. You lead this platoon. It was just like literally they were just dropping fools in, and they were like, fight.
Like gun. It was like Gantz. Have you guys seen Gantz?
Yeah, I've seen Gantz. That's
exactly what it's like.
That movie, wild.
I don't think I've seen that.
People have no concept of what's going on. They don't know the danger they're in. Fair. There's no organization. There's no.
There's just some people who are really knowledgeable and like really good and know everything and like, but
because they've done it.
Yeah, they've been there already. Basically, the swole black guy. Yeah, I mean, as far as like character development, I think, I did enjoy the comedic, the black guy, the Georgia Tech guy. I thought they did a pretty good job of giving him a balance of like, he's kind of serious, but he makes jokes and like, he's saying like the obvious things that even you as a viewer are thinking. Like when, I'm telling you, once he said the chef hat thing, I was like, he was like, why are they just bringing us here like we are? Like, this don't make no sense. Like, he was asking good questions, but it's like, I don't know, like.
But then he hid.
Yeah, and then he hid.
Remember, he hid, and I was like, oh, he's gonna die. Like, he's gonna kill himself, or he's gonna have PTSD or something.
That part was heavy.
And then he was fine. He was just fine.
He recovered. He said, "I'm gonna make a difference." He said, "I'm gonna do something that matters."
But even before that, when they went to him, he was just at his job at Georgia Tech, being all jovial.
Like, well, time to get this money for the next 30 years before I die.
After hiding from White Claw.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, it went really deep and dark with him, and then it was just nothing.
Never mind.
Other than that, I agree with you. I get what you're saying.
I mean, they did bring it back around when they went to the ship, and he like fought. He was like, this time I'm not going to be scared.
Yeah, that's true. They did.
I do that chainsaw, buzzsaw, whatever it was.
Oh, that moment that's one of those moments that was like slapstick. Because that guy, this monster came around the corner and it's like trying to like backpedal. It's like skidding on the ice. His chainsaw is just ready for it. And it just slides his head right into the chainsaw, and the guy's like getting it.
It was beautiful.
That whole moment.
Like, is this Gears of War? Keisha was looking at me hilarious. Like, she was looking at me funny because I was laughing so hard. And I was like, I love this. What a great moment. It's like Gears of War. So she was like, what do you
guys think about the last sequence where him and his dad, Chris Pratt's character and his dad were fighting? I thought it was like, I was like, I don't know what's happening here, but this is just ridiculous.
Was so ridiculous, man.
I thought it was a great ending.
At first, his dad baited it with his jacket. When did he have time to build a snowman?
It doesn't matter. It was great.
It was great.
Then that dude, he shot it once, and then he had the most silent
sniper rifle.
No, he crashed into it with his snowmobile.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
like out of nowhere. He had one chance to do that.
That's can we talk about that? That's a really impressive jump to make.
Yes.
You crash your snowmobile into a airborne alien.
That's
monster.
pretty gangster. Where did he get that jump from? Like, there's so many. Right. That's why they did that all off screen. They're like, it ain't gonna make no sense.
You just gotta find a little hill and hope that everything lines up,
and that it jumps when it does jump. And like,
yeah. That was That honestly took me out of the fight just for a split second.
Oh, there were a lot of things that took me out of the fight. Because then, he was fist fighting it, and his dad was legit about to die, and so he stabbed the thing, and then, like, he jumped on its back. Like, how do you even? It had the spike tail,
There's so
and
many
it didn't
problems.
stab him where he was grabbing it around the neck.
There's so many problems.
So many problems.
But I loved
They
it
were
because
just being irresponsible in that fight.
it was so, like, I call Independence Day. Like, it was so just over the top ridiculous. Like, it don't make no sense, but I love it because it happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's the kind of movie where, in most movies, like, when they like make a movie like that, they think to themselves, how can we make a sequel? But it almost felt like they were like, yo, we just gonna make this and hope it makes some money and keep moving. Like, because they, in another sci-fi movie, they would have shown, like, one skittering away, in the distance or something,
Well, I'm really glad they didn't do that because that'd be a boring sequel. I think the sequel bait is the engineers in the ship.
Yeah, that would have been cool if they showed, like, the engineers. But a lot of sci-fi movies...
No.
Yeah, go.
I don't think they need to show them. I think what they did was perfect. They implied the existence of, like, a loose end. Like, oh, who are these other aliens?
Yeah, the other alien species that was transporting.
But, like, sci-fi movies are, like, a lot of times, they love that, like, oh, you didn't really... Like, horror movies do this, too. Oh, you think you did it, but you really didn't. Like, it's always... Like,
hand out of the grave,
and they don't necessarily do a part 2, but they exactly, hand out of the grave. They love doing that. So I agree with you, Steve.
I hate that.
I agree with you, Steve. I appreciate that they didn't do that because it just made it concise. And if they go another direction, they can do what they did with the snowmobile. Just do it off screen and just tell us it happened.
It almost seemed like they were going to somehow try to pull that off because in the fight, he stabbed it and injected it once, right? And she bit off her own arm to stop the poison.
Yeah.
And so then they were fighting some more, and he shoved it down her throat, and they're like, okay, she's definitely dead this time, right? And so she falls off the hill, and it, like, pans in like it's going to be one of those moments where you think she's dead again, but she's not. But then she dissolved. So
yeah, like one of those moments where you just see her fall
like
through the clouds, but you don't see her die. You just hear it. But they were like, "No, we want to give y'all resolution. Like, this thing, not only did it die, it did
nothing.
It's gone.
Yeah,
I'm grateful.
What the heck was that poison? Like, I wish they had. I mean, God, whatever it was, it really tore through those guys.
Yeah, he didn't explain it.
I mean,
that junk was like pure acid.
Yeah, I guess it was some kind of thing that just... I guess if you think about it, there's plenty of, like, medical, biological warfare things that kill humans in very horrible ways, like sarin gas and stuff like that. Like,
yeah. So
I guess you just got to figure out what that thing would be for the aliens. I mean,
because she was researching like a bind or like whatever the bind.
She was trying to bind whatever chemical the queen was using to neutralize the toxin.
Yeah,
I do like that the what were the white spikes? I never can remember the name. Like, I like that they're kind of like, number one, they're kind of chaotic evil. Like, they don't really have a plan. Like, they're just murdering anything. But they seem to also, I don't know. It's like, it seemed like they were like, they sent blood. They were like, okay, think about this for a second. This just occurred to me. They resonate from blood, right? They smell blood like sharks or whatever. But if they're from an alien planet, from some other place, why does human blood, like, why does that trigger them? Like, that would say that the if those things were biologically engineered, because that's what it almost feels like they were, because they were in those sacks and there was millions. Right. Like, what was going on with the ship? Like, what was that ship's plan? Like, what was it doing?
Well, maybe our blood is just kind of common throughout the galaxy or whatever. Maybe because it wasn't just humans; it was animals they were chasing too in the desert or in the I guess in the Sahara scene when they captured the queen. They were like hunting
anything with blood,
random animals. Yeah, pretty much anything that moved.
Their blood was different.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It might really just be human blood. Maybe they're smart enough; they can smell lots of stuff, and maybe they were just smart enough to know, oh, I smell human blood, and they act on that. They're not like instinctually attracted to it or anything.
So what do you? Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
One of the things we were talking about on last, I think you mentioned it, Brad, was not the crocodile hunter. What's the crocodile hunter? Anyway, he mentioned that animals that haven't encountered humans before don't react to humans, and so I guess to that point, if they were smart enough, I guess, to know human blood, in that encounter on the ice where they hadn't encountered humans yet, like how do you explain why they knew what human blood was?
Oh, yeah, that's right. She knew what he
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions to me about the intent of that alien ship. Like, I know it's completely throwaway. It's just like, for them, from a movie writing standpoint, it's just a cool reveal. But to me, I just think there's so much you could do with that. Like, there was an alien ship from thousands and thousands of years ago flying around. Maybe it crash landed. Maybe who knows what happened. But it had thousands of these things waiting, like in gestation period. For what?
They said that, right? They said that the ship likely was used to clear out planets. The question was whether they meant to attack Earth or whether they just crashed on Earth.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part.
They definitely said, like, these seem to be engineered for invasion.
For wiping planets. So these people have they're like sending these things to destroy planets. Now, they crash landed, assuming, and maybe one or two of the creatures got out and killed them. First of all, what happened to those creatures? Maybe they died. Who knows? But like, they got out, then they were frozen inside. So like and this was, I guess if they were frozen, I mean, once again, I don't know enough about geology to like say what the timeline was, but it had to almost either, precede human civilization. Humans might have existed, but maybe it was just, like you said, just to kill any. So maybe they were programmed. So what if they were, sent here on purpose, programmed to wipe out all, like, mammalian life?
I mean,
the ship looked like a crash site, and the guys, the engineers they looked like they died on impact. They were still like strapped in, and they didn't find any like empty sacks of.
No, I thought they were hanging upside down, like how they kill, like how the creatures kill humans.
Oh, I didn't think about
I thought they were in the cockpit. Yeah, maybe
I did too.
They were inside whatever cockpit, but they were upside down. At least it looked like they were upside down.
The ship was up. I thought the ship was upside down.
No, because they entered like almost normally, like they were just walking around.
It was flat surface, but I guess I was assuming it was the roof since those guys were upside down. But
I thought the ship was upside down, but now that I think about it, I don't remember why I thought that, other than seeing the cockpit like that.
Yeah,
if they were strung up, then yeah.
Yeah, and they made a very big point to show you what it looked like when they were eating us, like harvesting us or whatever they were doing. Who knows what that was?
Oh, so to the researchers, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was the point. So, like, clearly their mission failed, but maybe like you said, maybe they weren't heading to this planet, but like where, I don't know, like where, like it's just so many questions. I know they probably will never make a movie about it, but I just think that's really interesting. Like there's like a whole nother plot that you could go down, right?
That actually implies that. So I was going to ask if the whole point was that, they were frozen in the snow and then the snow melted or the ice melted and then that's when they escape in the future. But I'm like, but they're not frozen in the ice. They're in their tanks. Like the ship would have to have woken them up when it was thawed out. Like that doesn't make any sense. But if we're saying that a couple of them escaped on impact, killed the engineers, and they got frozen, and they're the ones who thawed out, and they're the ones who
released the others.
Who are frozen in the ice, then in theory they're still frozen in the ice now, even though the ship was destroyed.
Okay, so now it gets me into the thought of, how did they enter the ship? I can't remember. Did they blow a hole in it?
They blew up a lot of
the ice.
Oh, that's a good question. They welded they melted. Star Wars style, they melted a hole in the door and walked.
They used the saw, yeah.
So they broke in. So first of all, we had the materials to be able to destroy their ship, which is interesting. But the aliens, the White Spice escaped somehow. So that means there's a breach somewhere. So are we supposed to assume that, like, okay, so they crash landed when there wasn't ice there, and then ice came on top of them?
They probably crashed into ice, and the ice refroze, and then more ice came on top of them.
Because I almost feel like they crashed before the ice formed. Then the ice was on top of them. So there's a chance that there might be a white spike already outside of the ship somewhere,
I mean,
maybe
that's true, but I feel like if it was before the ice, then that white spike would just be roaming around and there wouldn't be any life on Earth.
Well, were they crashed into a mountain or was it a glacier?
It was a glacier.
So I mean, if they were at the top of the glacier, then yeah, the glacier had been. Well, how do glaciers form? I mean, do they form from the bottom?
Wait a second. Wasn't the way that they pinpointed where they were was by the volcanic ash under the talon of one of the black guy had? Yes. So that means that they had to be exposed at some point, right, to the environment to get the volcanic ash on them, right?
No. They were exposed to the ash when they were digging out through the melted snow. That was that was the theory.
Post.
It melted enough. It melted enough for them to dig their way out.
So okay. So are we supposed to assume that the creatures who were in the ship who killed the crew were just frozen, and they unfroze? But how? Well, like what temperature? Like, there's so many questions here, because if they were able to dig out of the snow, that means they were still under snow. So
based on that theory, I fully expected them to like be entering a zone with like working and living creatures, but instead they were all in stasis. So that was surprising and unexpected, and it doesn't really make sense to me.
So I mean, maybe I'm wrong about them being strung up by the monsters, but to me that's what was implied. Maybe it was upside down and it crashed, and maybe the warming temperature just woke them up out of their sacks in general, and then they immediately went to that process. That would maybe would make more sense. I'd have to go back and watch. I'm interested, because I mean, it was like a quick flash, but it just reminded me of those scientists.
There's probably a theory somewhere on this move.
I was gonna say, Kyle, you should write a whole article about your theory about it being a time loop, and that it was just gonna, it was gonna happen anyway. But
just make sure you disable comments, because I'm gonna take it apart.
I was hoping you would co-write.
And also, was there only one queen? Like, only one?
That's what it seemed like.
It was implied there was more than one queen in the future, but maybe there was one queen in the ship and she gave birth to more queens.
Interesting.
Well, that room that was full of them, I mean, we don't know who was in there, but there was one queen in that main little room.
There was one queen that got away.
Yeah. She was from that main
Presumably room. Anyone in there, queen or otherwise, who was in the ship when it exploded, died.
They were taking their time injecting them for some reason.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I didn't expect the dying aliens to start screaming and making a noise, and the other ones to actually wake up from that.
I 100% did the moment they stepped in there.
I mean,
Keisha was like, "Why didn't they do them all at once?" And I'm like, "There's more than one room."
Yeah, I mean, their plan wasn't going to work anyway, because once they saw that room with like 10,000 of them, like their only option was to blow everything.
I still demand due diligence.
Everything.
What I want to know is, could they? It seemed like they had aerosoled the toxin in the future, and that was how they cleared the caves of the males and how they got the queen. Why didn't they do that?
Yeah, they were spraying something.
Oh, well, maybe it's just something that removes them but not kills them.
Or do that with the new toxin, the one that does kill. Yeah.
No, they had used the old toxin that worked on the males. It just didn't work on the females.
Wait, so why didn't they arm the people with the toxin to kill like toxin-laden bullets?
That's a great question.
I literally just thought that they just had cleared it out, like they killed all of the white spears in this particular place and just but you're right. They did use the toxin.
Maybe they did.
You're right. They used the toxin. So why didn't they just use the toxin in every like battle? Like just.
I don't know.
Even if it doesn't kill the queens, if it kills all the males, that's really
good because it reduces their numbers.
Yeah, and they could clearly handle a queen one-on-one when it was enough people. Wait, now I got all kind of questions.
Oh man.
No, so see See, that's problematic. But maybe they didn't have enough to produce it.
Yeah.
You know,
That would be. Oh, that's what it was. She said that we can't produce the toxin. We can't mass produce it here in the future. That was the whole point. He was supposed to take it back.
oh, to mass produce.
Was to mass produce it in the past. I forgot about
But
that.
he mass produced vials that had to be hand injected.
Well, why didn't they just immediately when they sent their group mass produce the male one, send it to Georgia Tech, because clearly that's where it needs to happen,
right.
and then just send it with
They
people,
could have done that,
right? Like just be a part of that, because clearly they were able to
Certainly
mass produce it really quickly to fly over to the middle of.
I mean, clear. You're right. That would have been the game plan. Let's not borrow thousands and millions of people from our past and kill them. Let's just borrow your mass production,
gas everybody,
take care of it
and
ourselves,
then kill all the queens. You know, and it just feels like the future's plan was like, we're going to die, we just want to restart.
Yeah.
But I honestly think it's a different timeline, and they just
seems like it has to be now.
You know,
I mean, they're still going to continue existing in their own timeline. It's not.
Well, they're all dead now.
Well, I don't know. Well,
the monsters are.
I guess no one cares.
Yeah.
There's still a version of Earth out there that sucks.
It's filled with white queens.
Now that they've killed all the humans and stuff, what are they gonna do?
Well, they'll kill the animals, and then I guess they'll die.
Okay.
Or they'll just become vegetarians.
Here's another question. Okay.
Start farming.
Assuming, okay, there's two scenarios. One, some killed the pilots, right? If some killed the pilots, why didn't like all of them wake up? Like only like 2 or 3 survived. Now, if none killed the pilots, what was the conditions? If a crash doesn't wake up these creatures in their holding, why does a slight temperature change?
Don't think about it too hard.
We're finding
what could kill the pilots but not kill the guys in stasis. I don't know.
Exactly. Like this, and it seemed like the ship was pretty intact, right?
It was.
Mm-hmm.
So the pilots couldn't have died from the man. There's so many questions, but
their airbags didn't deploy.
Their alien airbags didn't deploy, or maybe that was their airbags to release some of the white spheres. Like
you know that they hadn't. We didn't invent airbags back then.
I'm sorry, that's on me.
Oh, you mean the past aliens with alien technology to do interstellar travel would not have thought to make airbags? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's no air in space.
They don't use it. They make space bags.
So it's just like there's nothing. It was just a bag of emptiness.
I'm sorry. I've caused a problem here.
Okay, so the verdict is that Tomorrow War makes almost no sense when you really get into it.
Yes.
Like any sci-fi movie, I would say.
You know, there's some sci-fi movies I feel like you can, in their universe rules, like Interstellar's universe rules are pretty strong.
That's fair.
Like this.
Okay, I'm sorry, I take it back. You know, like a lot of sci-fi.
A lot of. I mean, Europa Report, but and if you're out there and you haven't seen Europa Report, please don't.
Just don't.
Like, just save. Like, honestly,
watch it today.
It's not even funny bad. It's just bad.
It's really
take it from me. Someone who has
disappointing bad. But I mean, I think I think I think it was a good movie. Like, I think it's a good one definitely to watch once. It's very fun to watch. If you know,
it's entertaining.
If you've listened to this podcast, you probably already watched it. But I mean, I definitely encourage people who haven't watched it to definitely watch it. It's a fun movie, you know.
Yeah, it's worth the watch.
So,
I do have one more thing I was thinking about on that movie. So, you know how in a lot of these movies, when they have names like this, they usually kind of like turn it around. And so I was expecting, you know, us to be so enthralled with this idea of, he's fighting in the future, and the future is our tomorrow, right? And so that's why it's called Tomorrow War. But then, you know, it got really deep into the feels with his daughter, and she was feeling abandoned because he left her. And I was thinking like, they're going to tie it back. And the Tomorrow War is actually the war you fight in your heart somehow to save your family. But I don't feel like they ever really addressed that in a way that made sense. And I don't know if that was intentional. Like, maybe I'm thinking too far into it and wanting there to be some sort of connection between, you know, the tomorrow of saving your tomorrow today by being a good dad type of thing.
So you essentially wanted them to do in the movie that moment where the person's like, I can't believe this, but it's time for us to fight. The Tomorrow War.
Tomorrow War.
like, that's when you turn the movie off. Like, I'm good. Like,
Well, they came close. They called it the Future War in the news a lot.
there you go. And they decided, you know what? Let's not call it the Future War. Like, what's another word for future? Like,
There's probably already a movie called Future War.
Probably. They're like, it's already taken. We can't.
It's funny because the title implies that there's a lot of stress about the question of like who's really fighting this war, and is it worth it? Should we be involved? The Tomorrow War, but then all those issues are just flavor text, right? Like none of that actually involves our character or any of the characters' loved ones.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been cool, like you said, to have some type of like actual like conversation within the world of the merit of this war, and not like maybe there'd be like two sides of it. One side that believes we should go into the war, and like they go, and then like the anti side who sabotages the time jump, maybe like you justify that moment that happened, they sabotage it, and their whole goal is to stop us sending people in the future, and that we can solve the future by solving what's happening in the past now. So you'd have this like terrorist like organization like called the Present War, or they could be called the Tomorrow War, we fight for tomorrow, not for the future,
Oh.
And that leader wears a mask.
Yeah, that would have been cool, but
And he says, remember 2022, when the year that you're in right now.
Remember.
But yeah, so anywho, hey guys, I really enjoyed this conversation. I have so many more questions. I got to do some research after this. I need to look at some scenes to verify some things. Kyle, I need you to go ahead and write that article. Go ahead and keep comments on, because I want to see everybody's opinion about the time loop theory. Thank you, Steve, for not getting too angry about the physics of the movie, like the physics implementation. Not implementation, but the things that probably make no sense. There's a lot of issues.
You kind of just have to take time travel movies in stride, just be like, that's the premise, whatever.
That's what it is.
Oh, the White Claws had gliders sometime. They were messing with physics too. I forgot about that.
See, that whole thing, like, I honestly thought that 100% that the White Claws were just an experiment gone wrong. Somebody's trying to make the ultimate creature. You know what I'm saying? Because it had flying squirrel, ant, dog, like
scorpion,
like all kind of creatures, right? And it just, Jurassic Park kind of, when they made theirs. But they went a different direction, so I appreciate that.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
It was more interesting, but yeah, once again, thank you guys for checking out this episode of Super Agile Bros. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. We have many, many more of those to come. We love sci-fi, we like video games, we like a lot of stupid things, but we also like serious things, so those conversations will come too. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Steve. And look forward to chatting with you guys in the future, and look forward to seeing you guys in another episode of Super Agile Bros. Y'all take it easy. Peace.